Catherine Miller's private lounge was both a symbol of her power and a testament to our intimate bond. No one but me had ever been allowed inside until then. Yet there I saw her assistant brazenly intrude under the pretext of helping. That was the moment I knew this marriage couldn't last. If someone dares to challenge the rules, then don't blame me for rewriting the ending myself. Later, Catherine asked me with reddened eyes why I had to deal such a fatal blow to the Miller Group. I just chuckled nonchalantly. If love is gone, shouldn't I at least safeguard my own interests? Today, I went to Catherine's company to meet her at the agreed-upon time. We're going back together to the Miller family's estate for dinner. Catherine's office is on the top floor. Passing through the administrative assistant's work area leads to her exclusive space. The outer section is both the reception area and her desk space, while the inner part connects to her private lounge and study. That place holds special significance. It's her absolute private domain. No one but me is allowed to enter at will, yet when I stepped into Catherine's office today, I noticed the door to her private area was slightly ajar. I gently pushed the door open, and the scene inside left me frozen in place. Leo Carter was inside. I knew of him. He was the newly hired assistant at Miller Group. At that moment, he was standing by Catherine's desk, organizing files. There was a freshly brewed cup of coffee still sitting on the counter beside them. He seemed slightly surprised to see me, but quickly plastered on a smile that carried a faint obsequiousness. "Mr. Sullivan, you're here. Miller always has me wait for her," he paused, "and help with some personal matters along the way." He gestured to the documents in his hand, and then to the coffee. "Miller always says she'll be right back." I remained silent, just staring at this man who shouldn't be here. His words felt like a tiny thorn pricking my heart. Private matters? What kind of private affairs could Catherine have that required him to handle them? Here, in this place virtually cut off from the outside world except for me? I remember Catherine saying this was the place where she could completely relax. Here, she only reveals her truest self to me. But now, Leo Carter stands here, arranging her documents with an almost proprietorial air, brewing her coffee. Though he acts humble, his eyes and tone unmistakably hint at his privileged position with Catherine. I once believed that my marriage to Catherine was different from typical arranged marriages between families, that ours was built on genuine affection. Yet now it seems we're no different from any other arranged couple. Suppressing the turbulent emotions surging within me, I refrained from venting my anger at Leo Carter. Losing my temper would only make me seem undignified and overly affected by him. I simply regarded him coolly and said, "Your presence isn't required here. Leave." Leo Carter's smile froze on his face. He probably didn't expect me to be so direct, and a flash of embarrassment crossed his eyes. But he quickly lowered his head. "Yes, Mr. Sullivan." Then he put down the documents and coffee, leaving the lounge in quick strides. I stood in the empty lounge. The air seemed to still carry traces of his presence, making me feel physically uncomfortable. I walked to the window, watching the bustling traffic below, yet my mood remained unsettled. A few minutes later, Catherine returned. She seemed surprised to see me standing alone by the window. "Ethan, you're here. Where's Leo?" I turned to face her. "I sent him out." "Catherine, have you forgotten the rules of this lounge?" I spoke in a very calm tone. Catherine was momentarily stunned and casually brushed it off. "Oh, that? I just had him come in temporarily to help me find a document. It was just work-related, don't overthink it." She tried to put her arm around my shoulder. "He's new, might not know the rules yet." I avoided her hand and looked straight into her eyes. "Catherine, this isn't about whether he knows the rules or not. You know what this place means to you and me. I don't want a third person casually setting foot here. This is the first time," I said quietly, "and I hope it will be the last. I can't tolerate anyone invading my private space. Whoever it is, for whatever reason." The ease vanished from Catherine's face. She looked at me with a complicated gaze. After several seconds of silence, she nodded. "Fine, I understand. It won't happen again." Her tone sounded sincere enough, but I remained guarded. On the way back to the Miller family estate, the atmosphere was somewhat heavy. Catherine tried several times to start a conversation, but I responded with detached indifference. During dinner, we maintained a superficial harmony in front of the elders, yet we both knew in our hearts that something had changed. When we returned to our own home, Catherine finally couldn't hold back anymore. She embraced me from behind, her chin resting on the crook of my neck. "Ethan, are you still upset about what happened this afternoon?" Her voice carried a tinge of fatigue and appeasement. "Leo really is just my subordinate. I don't have any other feelings for her." I didn't pull away from her embrace but simply murmured, "Catherine, what bothers me isn't who he is. It's not whether you have any other feelings for him." I turned to face her. "What matters to me is boundaries, that sense of exclusivity we should have between us. Your private lounge is our space, just like our home. I don't want others to easily intrude. That would make me feel our relationship is no longer special." Catherine looked at me deeply. "I'm sorry, Ethan. It was my oversight. I didn't consider your feelings." She held my hand. "Don't worry, nothing like this will ever happen again. That lounge, no one but you will be allowed to enter casually," she solemnly assured me. However, the peaceful days didn't last long before new turmoil arose. This time, the news was brought to me by my assistant, Mark. Mark had been with me for many years, utterly loyal, and had his own information channels within the Miller Group. While reporting on his work, Mark casually mentioned something as if by chance. I heard Mr. Miller recently gave Leo Carter an invitation to that Pinnacle Club. Mr. Miller even said he could bring friends along to experience it. The Pinnacle Club? I know that place. It's an exclusive venue where the city's richest elites and powerful figures gather. Their membership screening is extremely strict. Non-members can't even get through the door. Catherine is a longtime member there, and we occasionally go together. Sometimes she also gifts those rare visitor invitations to important business partners, or as one of the highest honors, given to only a handful of core executives within the group. But to Leo Carter, a newly hired assistant, and allowing him to bring friends along? Mark continued. Leo Carter seemed quite pleased. He posted photos on social media with visibility limited to a specific group. Some colleagues have already seen it and are whispering about it privately. They say Miller always gives him special treatment, and that he's already entered Miller's inner circle. My heart sank, and a chill ran through me. What exactly is Catherine up to? Did she just casually grant this status-symbolizing privilege to a young male subordinate? This wasn't merely boundary crossing anymore. Had she forgotten her last promise? Or did she simply not care? Leo Carter's conspicuous showing off poured oil on the flames. His petty motives were pathetically transparent. He clearly wanted to elevate his own status by making people think he shared some special connection with Catherine. Very well, since you want to play the privilege game, then I'll show you what true privilege really looks like. I picked up the phone and called my father's executive assistant, also a senior executive at Sullivan Holdings. Mr. Davis, do me a favor. All visitor slots at the Summit Club for the next month, along with several key private booking periods. Reserve them all under Sullivan Holdings' name. Say it's a perk for corporate executives and their families. We can release the news publicly and make it high profile. Mr. Davis immediately set to work. The Sullivan family's wealth and influence were more than sufficient to accomplish this. The Peak Club, naturally, was happy to do them this favor. Soon the news spread. Sullivan Holdings had booked the Peak Club's main resources for the near future as a reward for their executive team. For a time, Sullivan Holdings' grand gesture became a hot topic of discussion within the industry. And suddenly, Leo Carter's exclusive invitation lost all its significance, even seeming somewhat ridiculous. When all executives from Sullivan Holdings could freely bring their families along, what did his so-called special treatment amount to? His carefully planned boasting and subtle hints fell completely flat, instead making him the laughingstock of others. It's said that when he wanted to take his friends there that day, he found it impossible to reserve any decent spot. All the good time slots and areas had been monopolized by Sullivan Holdings, forcing him to leave in disappointment. This is exactly how I want to show everyone, especially Catherine and Leo Carter, who truly holds the resources and influence in this circle. Who is the rightful master of this household? This time, I chose to cut the root of the problem. No direct confrontation was needed, yet it was more powerful than any argument. 5. My counterattack proved effective, as Leo Carter became noticeably dispirited at the company. The admiration and gossip that once surrounded him now turned into faint mockery and alienation. The faint halo of specialness he had just managed to build was mercilessly shattered by me. Just a few days later, Catherine returned home looking terribly upset. The moment she stepped through the door, she radiated suppressed anger. But I didn't give her a chance to vent, simply asking calmly what she'd like for dinner. My composed reaction seemed to catch in her throat. The prepared accusations remained unspoken. He just irritably unbuttoned his collar. Whatever. That evening, the atmosphere was tense. I knew Leo Carter must have gone to her to vent his grievances. Sure enough, the very next day I heard a more detailed version from Mark. It said that Leo Carter went to see Catherine, looking aggrieved, his eyes red-rimmed, appearing pitiful and helpless. He said he was simply happy to receive the invitation and wanted to experience the atmosphere, with absolutely no ulterior motives. He didn't understand why Mr. Sullivan would do this, mobilizing such extensive resources just to target a mere assistant like him. Now he couldn't hold his head up at all in the company, with colleagues mocking him behind his back. He felt deeply wronged and upset, portraying himself as an innocent victim through his words. I was making a mountain out of a molehill, nitpicking over every detail. As for Catherine's reaction, Mark failed to find out, but I could guess. Given her inexplicable protective instinct toward the underdog, especially when the other party appeared so helpless, she probably bought it, and would likely think I'd gone too far. I smirked. Leo Carter's little act wasn't terribly sophisticated, but such tactics often worked on someone like Catherine. She was always easily deceived by appearances, especially when her pitiful protective instincts were triggered. That weekend, Catherine said to me, "Ethan, tonight, Leo is coming over." I was reading a financial magazine when I looked up, my eyes devoid of any warmth. "What's he coming for?" "He wants to apologize to you in person." Catherine's tone was hesitant. "About what happened at the club last time. He thinks you might have misunderstood. I think it's better for everyone to clarify things, to avoid awkwardness at work later." I put down the magazine in my hands. What exactly did I misunderstand? That he was flaunting your special privilege everywhere? Or is it that I misunderstood you were trying to elevate his status this way? Catherine's expression turned slightly awkward. Ethan, it's not what you think. Giving him the invitation was partly a reward for his hard work lately. On the other hand, it was also to broaden his horizons, which would help with his work. I really didn't mean anything else. I stood up. You know perfectly well if there's any other meaning. Since you want him to come, then let him come. Perfect timing. I also have some things to say. That evening, Leo Carter indeed came. Dressed in a well-fitted light gray suit with meticulously groomed hair, he looked quite dashing. His eyes were still slightly red, as if he'd been struggling to control his emotions. The moment he saw me, he immediately gave a slight bow, his voice laden with apology. Mr. Sullivan, I'm sorry, he said, about what happened last time. I was wrong. I shouldn't have posted those photos on my social feed. It caused misunderstandings. I was just so excited, I didn't think it through. Please forgive me, he said with an air of genuine remorse. Had I not known his true nature, I might have been fooled by that earnest expression. Catherine watched me, a flicker of hope in her eyes, wishing I would accept the apology. I didn't look at Leo Carter. Instead, my gaze remained fixed on Catherine. No need to apologize. Whether I accept it or not isn't important. I turned to Leo Carter, my gaze sharp. Mr. Carter, there's something I want you to understand. At Miller Group, do your job well and don't covet what you don't deserve. And never attempt to cross lines you shouldn't challenge. Then, I turned my gaze back to Catherine, my tone resolute. My bottom line, I made it perfectly clear last time. I won't tolerate any further boundary-blurring behavior. If it happens again, you'll bear the consequences yourselves. With that, I stopped looking at their stiff expressions and walked straight up the stairs. 7. After that night, the atmosphere between Catherine and me dropped to freezing point. Though we still lived under the same roof, communication became scarce. Even when we did speak, it was mostly about trivial, everyday matters. We had another argument before bed. She accused me of going too far with Leo Carter. Even if he was at fault, you shouldn't have been so aggressive. And that club incident, you handled it way too publicly. Allocating such massive resources was a complete waste. I lifted my head from the documents I was reviewing in the study and looked at her. Waste? I closed the folder, my tone dripping with sarcasm. Catherine, do you honestly still believe the issue lies with my so-called waste of resources? Rather than you casually handing out what should rightfully belong to our marriage, or at the very least remain within my discretion to manage, these so-called privileges, given to a scheming outsider? Catherine raised her voice. That's completely different. I told you, it's a form of encouragement for outstanding employees. The invitation to Peak Club has been given to others before. I retorted, outstanding employee? What has Leo Carter done? Does he even deserve it? Catherine, dare you say there isn't a single other thought in your heart? She was momentarily speechless at my question, attempting to justify herself. I just thought it's not easy for him as a newcomer. As his superior, it's only right that I show him more consideration. She even adopted a firmer tone. I'll continue to look out for him as circumstances require. As the company's CEO, I believe I still have that much authority. I calmly said, then I also need to reconsider whether our marriage still has any reason to continue. Catherine abruptly stared at me, her eyes filled with shock. Her face instantly turned grim, her voice cracking with emotion. Ethan, all these years of our relationship, and now you casually say something like this over such a trivial matter? I met her furious gaze. You made me feel like I'm not irreplaceable in your heart. In that case, I absolutely need to seriously consider whether I should persist or not. She seemed somewhat flustered by my resolute gaze, her chest heaving violently several times. Finally, as if deflated, she replied stiffly, fine. I promise you, from now on I'll keep my distance from Leo Carter. No unnecessary contact outside of work. Are you satisfied now? Don't mention those divorce words again. She clenched her teeth, as if making a tremendous concession, but I knew this was only a temporary compromise. Catherine reluctantly agreed to my demand. She also seemed to deliberately maintain some distance from Leo Carter, at least at the company. But this didn't change Leo Carter's situation. After the last privilege incident, Leo Carter's days at the company were already difficult. Mark was a smart and loyal subordinate who understood my implication. Though I never gave explicit instructions, Mark always found ways to ensure Leo Carter encountered minor inconveniences in his work. It wasn't bullying, but enough to make him feel pressured and isolated. Leo Carter's plan to rise through the ranks by aligning with Catherine had backfired. Instead, his previous bragging had attracted jealousy and ostracism. His work became increasingly error-prone, and his mood grew steadily gloomier. He looked somewhat haggard overall, having lost the triumphant air he once had. I was aware of these situations, but I didn't intervene or prevent anything. This was the path he chose for himself, and he must bear the consequences that come with it. The turning point came one afternoon. Catherine went to a department to handle some business and happened to witness Leo Carter being severely reprimanded by his direct superior for a work error. That superior was a veteran of the company, with a rigorous personality who spoke quite bluntly. Leo Carter stood there, pale-faced, lips tightly pressed together, looking utterly disheveled. This scene happened to be witnessed by Catherine. According to later accounts from those present, Director Miller's expression had turned extremely unpleasant at the time, but she merely shot a cold glance at the company veteran before leaving without another word. But I knew the scene had touched the most tender and obsessive corner of Catherine's heart, that shadow of her younger brother who died too young. She always believed her brother had suffered injustice and unfairness, leading to the later tragedy. She had an almost stubborn protective instinct toward young men who appeared defeated or seemingly in need of protection, especially when the young man bore some resemblance to the brother in her memories. Leo Carter's embarrassment and silence hit his trigger point with precision. The scales within her heart tipped once again. That evening, Catherine returned home, seething with resentment. "Ethan Sullivan," she nearly growled. "Do you have to push people this far to be satisfied?" I frowned. "What are you talking about?" She snapped back angrily. "You know exactly what I mean. What exactly did he do wrong to make you suppress him like this at the company? Did you see how humiliated he was today?" That look of his reminded me of my younger brother. She blamed me for Leo Carter's so-called alienation, even bringing her brother into the argument. I also grew angry. Whatever Leo Carter has encountered at the company is a matter of his own abilities and social conduct. Which eye of yours saw me ordering anyone to bully him? And stop bringing your brother into this. Leo Carter is your subordinate, not some stand-in for your brother. Your absurd sense of protectiveness is completely misplaced. She sneered. "My protectiveness? I think it's you who's utterly heartless." The eldest son of the Sullivan family has always been accustomed to looking down from above. He can't stand seeing others work hard, nor can he tolerate the slightest setback. "Do you have to step on everyone who isn't as good as you?" Her words were like knives, stabbing fiercely into my heart. I looked at this woman before me who was now hurling insults at me because of outsiders. Is this truly the woman I have sincerely and wholeheartedly loved? I didn't even have the strength to argue, feeling only absurdity and exhaustion. A few days later, I heard that Catherine transferred Leo Carter to the CEO's office as her special assistant. As for that superior who had once severely criticized Leo Carter, soon after, he was transferred to an insignificant department under some pretext. As for Mark, Catherine also had him reassigned from his original position that could have given him access to more core information. Catherine made her stance clear through her actions. She chose to protect Leo Carter by dealing with those she believed had bullied him. She was making a show of defiance against me. 10. The Cold War between us escalated completely when Catherine moved into the guest room. Later, she simply spent most of her time living in the apartment near her company. I didn't try to stop her, nor did I question her. In fact, I felt relieved not having to face her accusations that blurred right and wrong. But she didn't stop challenging my limits. She began having Leo Carter handle more of her personal affairs. She had him coordinate with the family driver and housekeeper to arrange her private schedule. She even had him fetch and deliver her personal belongings to and from her home. Once, Leo Carter directly entered by keying in the passcode. He said it was because manager Miller had sent him to retrieve a forgotten document and several changes of her clothes, though he still stood at the door, maintaining his deferential posture. Yet there was an almost imperceptible glimmer of smugness and testing in his eyes. I had the housekeeper fetch the items for him, never exchanging a single word with him the entire time. As I closed the door, a profound sense of helplessness washed over me. "Catherine, must you continually wound me like this?" After that, I rejected all her attempts to communicate. I ignored her calls and disregarded her messages, since she chose to protect that outsider at my expense. So be it. 11. The growing distance between Catherine and Leo Carter's rise to prominence couldn't escape public notice. Leo Carter began deliberately showcasing the close work relationship between him and Catherine. Sometimes it's posting a picture of the office late at night on social media. The caption reads, "Working hard with the boss, feeling fulfilled." Other times it's casually dropping hints in workplace conversations about his involvement in some crucial decision made by General Miller, or occasionally mentioning General Miller's personal preferences in passing. He no longer flaunted it outright as he did last time, but instead hinted at it in a more subtle way to stir the imagination. I turned a deaf ear to all of this. I stopped paying attention to what tricks Leo Carter was pulling or agonizing over Catherine's attitude. When disappointment reaches its peak, all that remains is composure. I began sorting through Miller Group-related businesses, seeking potential competitive entry points. I need to prepare a way out for myself. Catherine believes sacrificing me can buy her the peace or protection she desires. Leo Carter thinks he's won. Fine, sooner or later I'll make them pay. 12. Another Miller family dinner. Catherine's mother called me personally, speaking gently to insist I attend. I knew she wanted to ease tensions between Catherine and me, so I agreed. As usual, I went straight to Catherine's company, ready to set off for the manor with her. I reached the top floor, where her assistant told me that Ms. Miller was in the lounge inside. I walked toward that familiar door. This time, it was closed. I knocked, and Catherine's voice came from within, "Come in." Pushing open the door, I once again saw the person I least wanted to see. Catherine was sitting on the sofa reviewing documents, with Leo Carter seated beside her, reporting on work matters. That spot used to be mine. Hearing the door open, both of them looked up simultaneously. When she saw it was me, Catherine responded coolly, "Have a seat here for a minute, there's still some business to handle." I didn't sit down, just stood there watching them. Catherine frowned and told Leo Carter to get up. Leo Carter was taken aback. "President Miller, there's still some final data left to report." Catherine said calmly, "Let's go to the cafe downstairs from the company. I'll book a private room where we can continue." Then she said to me, "You rest here. Wait for me at the company entrance in 20 minutes. She left me in her most private lounge. Then she took Leo Carter to the cafe for a private room. But what could I say? Didn't Catherine leave this executive lounge for me? I have to say, Catherine really knows how to humiliate me. I watched their silhouettes leaving together. Catherine didn't even glance back at me. As Leo Carter passed by me, the corner of his mouth seemed to curl into an almost imperceptible smile. I sighed at my treatment, even laughed about it. I calmly accepted all of this. 13 On the way to the estate, Catherine and I barely exchanged a word. She must have known what her earlier actions meant to me. Yet she didn't care, even casually bringing up the importance of tomorrow's meeting. As if taking Leo Carter to a cafe to hear his report was the most routine work procedure imaginable. I just gazed silently out the window, having already made up my mind in my heart. The atmosphere at the Millers' dinner party maintained its usual facade of harmony. Catherine's mother tried to create conversation topics between Catherine and me, hoping to ease the tension between us. Catherine's father was discussing company matters with her. I ate quietly, occasionally responding to her mother's remarks. After dinner, everyone sat in the living room drinking tea and chatting. Catherine's phone suddenly rang urgently. She answered the call, spoke a few words, and her expression changed drastically. "What? How could this happen? Have they found out who did it?" Her voice grew louder, filled with disbelief and fury. As she hung up the phone, several messages immediately came through. She scanned them quickly, her fingers turning pale from gripping too hard. Catherine's mother asked worriedly, "Catherine, what's wrong?" Catherine raised her head and stared at me intently, her eyes filled with shock, anger, and a hint of confusion. "Our group's key development project in the Eastern District," her voice sounded somewhat hoarse, "the most crucial piece of land has been snatched away by someone. And moreover, one of our key partners abruptly announced their withdrawal. Instead, they partnered with our main competitor." She paused, then with great difficulty uttered the final words. It said, "Sullivan Holdings is pulling the strings behind the scenes." All eyes instantly turned towards me. Catherine's mother looked at me in shock, while her father furrowed his brow. Catherine looked at me with complex emotions. "Ethan, tell me this isn't true. It's just a misunderstanding, isn't it?" I met her gaze calmly, even with a hint of a smile. "It's true, I did it." 14 Why? Catherine's voice was hoarse. "Ethan, why would you do this? That is a project that the Miller Group values enormously. Do you have any idea what this means for the corporation? We're husband and wife. How could you, husband and wife?" I cut her off, my voice icy. "When you let that man gradually erode our trust and boundaries, when you allowed him to freely invade my personal space, even my home, when you defended him by speaking harshly to me and even publicly suppressing those close to me, did you ever consider that we're husband and wife?" I stared straight at Catherine. "You let him invade my life and trample over my boundaries. I'll make sure you experience what it's like to be stabbed in the back by someone closest to you. If love is gone, shouldn't I at least protect my own interests?" Kathleen retorted vehemently, "I haven't betrayed you. Leo and I truly only have a professional relationship. How could you do such a thing over these misunderstandings? This is business. This isn't child's play." "Misunderstandings?" I sneered coldly. "The harm you've caused me, was any of that fake? Once trust is destroyed, it can never be restored." I stood up and looked at her, enunciating every word. "Catherine Miller, we're getting divorced." With these words spoken, I straightened my back and walked out of the Miller family estate. At this moment, I felt an unprecedented clarity and lightness. 15. Catherine chased after me. She grabbed my arm to stop me from getting into the car. "Ethan, let's talk at home. You can't just leave like this." Her voice held a plea, even panic. I shook off her hand. "Which home? The one you've already allowed outsiders to enter as they please? Or the one where you criticized me just to defend someone else?" But she insisted, pulling me into her car, speeding all the way. We returned to what was once our home. Pushing open the door, the living room felt somewhat empty. Some of my personal belongings had already been packed and taken away by me in advance. Catherine gazed at the empty living room, seemingly even more distressed by the sight. She suddenly turned around and grabbed my shoulders. "Ethan, don't do this to me." Her eyes were filled with utter devastation. "I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have indulged Leo and let you suffer like this. I shouldn't have said those hurtful things to you. I just thought he was like my younger brother. I'm sorry, I apologize to you," she pleaded. "Please don't leave me. Don't mention divorce, alright?" Her eyes reddened. The usually domineering woman now appeared utterly vulnerable. In the past, I might have softened at this sight, but now, I simply watched her calmly. "Catherine, it's too late. Your indulgence towards Leo Carter has completely destroyed my feelings for you, along with the last shred of hope for this marriage. As for Leo Carter being like your brother," I shook my head, finding it utterly absurd. "I'm not a substitute for your brother, and neither is Leo Carter. You can't project your guilt about your brother onto others, then using that as an excuse to hurt the closest people to you. It's just business matters," I continued, nearly a way for me to protect myself and end this mistaken relationship. "You're the one who pushed me step by step to this point. You're the one who personally destroyed everything we had. There's really no going back between us." I gently pushed her away. "Let each other go, Catherine." 16. Catherine refused the divorce and began using every means to win him back. She had Leo Carter transferred out of the president's office. Soon after, she even found an excuse to fire him outright. Swift and decisive, as if desperate to sever all ties immediately, she kept coming home frequently, persisting to stay even when I treated her coldly. She would attempt cooking dishes I'd casually mentioned before, buying books I'd offhandedly said I liked. She'd wait for me when I worked late, just like she used to. Once, she even got completely drunk, endlessly shouting my name outside my door, begging for forgiveness. But the harm had been done, and trust had collapsed. No amount of reconciliation could undo the damage. During my insistence on divorce, Leo Carter actually came to find me. He looked much more downcast, his eyes brimming with resentment and unwillingness, devoid of his former composure and sophistication. He spat out sharply, "Ethan Sullivan, you must be feeling very smug, aren't you? You've ruined everything for me, all because I was in your way. Do you think you've won? Catherine doesn't have you in her heart at all. She's just..." I merely cut him off coldly. "Mr. Carter, you chose this path yourself. You tried to take shortcuts, coveting what wasn't yours to begin with. Now you must face the consequences. As for the matter between me and Catherine Miller, it's none of your business." I paused, looking at his pale, twisted face. "Rather than resenting others here, perhaps you should take a good look at yourself and reflect on why things have come to this." With that, I walked straight past him, leaving behind the sound of his unwilling shouts. 17. No matter how hard Catherine tried to reconcile, I insisted on getting a divorce. Meanwhile, some of my moves in the business world also brought continuous pressure upon the Miller Group. After months of stalemate, Catherine finally realized that this marriage was truly beyond saving. The light faded from her eyes, and she grew visibly haggard. Finally, she agreed to the divorce. On the day we signed the papers, Catherine and I sat in silence. At the moment my pen touched the document, I felt a wave of relief. This marriage, which had drained all my energy and been filled with disappointment and pain, had finally come to an end. Leaving the courthouse, Catherine stood behind me and called my name. "Ethan." Her voice trembled with emotion. Without turning back, I simply whispered, "Goodbye, Catherine Miller." Then, I walked toward my car. From this moment onward, our lives would diverge onto separate paths. 18. After the divorce, news about Leo Carter gradually surfaced. To completely sever ties, Catherine offered no further assistance to Leo Carter after his dismissal. Because of Leo Carter's involvement in his supervisor's marriage, which caused a major scandal and was considered a misconduct, his reputation in the industry was completely ruined, and hardly any reputable company was willing to hire him. It was said that he changed jobs several times afterward, but none lasted long. In the end, he left the city. That once ambitious young man, eager to reach the pinnacle in one step, ultimately paid a heavy price for his greed and scheming. Catherine's life underwent tremendous changes as well. For her, losing me meant more than just the loss of a husband. It signified an irreparable rift in the long-standing business alliance with the Sullivan family. Though it didn't cause the immediate collapse of the Miller Group, it did lead to numerous setbacks in subsequent developments. She herself became more withdrawn and hardened, pouring almost all her time into work. She later tried to contact me a few times through friends, but I chose to avoid or reject her each time. Some wounds, once inflicted, cannot be healed. Meanwhile, I had completely broken free from that suffocating past. A new life has dawned upon me. With the assets obtained from the division and the resources of the Sullivan family, I independently managed several successful investment projects. I carved out a brand new world that truly belongs to me. My life has become free and fulfilling, never lacking admirers or business partners. Yet I cherish even more this current state of complete independence. I began charting a new career path, venturing into a broader world, connecting with like-minded friends to expand my horizons. I become the person I truly wanted to be. The end.